Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
And thank you again for joining us here on Truth Frequency Radio. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed. And as always, we greatly appreciate all of you taking the time to be with us in live broadcast. You can find us in the chat on our YouTube channel, Zen Garcia, and join us there for discourse and fellowship with the rest of the community. And tonight will be a continuance of our chapter by chapter, verse by verse study of the book of Revelation. I'm joined by my son, Justin James Garcia, and we will be going through. Where did we end off, son? Chapter 9, 10,
Yep, we're
something
on
like that.
chapter 9. Just finished reading through the fifth trumpet.
Excellent. All right. Well, how are you doing this evening?
Doing very well. Thank you very much. Also, I know that it's been a long time coming, but I finally got a new mic, so hopefully I sound much more clear. I know a lot of people kept pointing out that I sounded like I was, I don't know, in the other room or like really soft. And I've tried so many different mics. It's so hard to figure all of this technology stuff out, especially when you just, I don't know, just have so many different options available these days, And then I
Right,
tried like I tried a microphone, like a headset mic. I tried all these
right,
different types of mics, and I'm going to find out the broadcasting software just wasn't picking it up. Wasn't picking up my new mics. It kept doing some like generic mic that was on my computer, and that's why no matter what mic I plugged in, it always sounded low quality. I just couldn't figure it out. So finally, hopefully this one is coming through. And yeah, let me know in the chat if it sounds great. Thank you, Jamali. Jamali says it sounds great. I'm so glad to hear
it does
that.
sound better. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear that. I know on OBS I have filters so you can't hear the background noise, but I'm not sure about on Skype how it's coming through. And yeah, that's how we connect to the radio on TFR. So I'm not sure if you can hear all the background noise. I apologize if you do. I will definitely mute
No,
myself when I'm
we
not
don't.
talking.
We don't. We don't hear anything. You sound really clear.
All right, great. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
what an exciting time. I feel like I moved into the 21st century finally.
right on. After all these years, huh? Well, excellent. Did you want to catch up on any current events? I will bring up just a couple things I've been watching, and it seems like definitely tensions are increasing um, with Ukraine and Russia and NATO, and then also over there in the China Sea with Taiwan, and now even Vietnam and the Philippines were also engaged in conflict, and their sovereignty and their territorial waters are being challenged. It seems like they're just provoking and pushing buttons, and just seeing how far they can go to, to check the reactions of the surrounding countries and peoples that are found and around them. And it seems like they have taken up the posture that they're just gonna bully everybody and see what happens. And it's unfortunate because people don't like to be bullied, and it can lead to conflict. And certainly that's not what I wish for the world. And but that is what is also prophesied. The wars and rumors of wars, earthquakes in diverse places. We have all these volcanoes going off. Excuse me. But let me turn it over to you, and I'm going to get some water.
Yeah, definitely. maybe you should consider drinking some warm honey and water, honey tea before shows as well. That way, you can really take it easy on your throat. I know that you're doing so many shows for so long. But yeah, the
Yeah.
crazy things going on around the world, and it's just all part of a game that the Illuminati are playing. And at any time, they can pick any card to play. Whatever fits their agenda best at that time. All of these tensions, we knew that it would happen ahead of time. Nation would rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. You'll hear of wars and rumors of wars, as you quoted from the famous sermon that the Messiah gave on the Mount. You get all of this. I guess it's all been escalating, right? I mean, you've seen so much of what happened from 2,000 years ago. The world was somewhat united by the Roman Empire, as Daniel was given a prophecy of. That Daniel was there in the time of Babylon. He was told that after Babylon, the Media Persia would take over and conquer that land, and then there would be a horn that would rise up, like one king that would rise up and conquer Media Persia. And you saw that was Alexander the Great, and conquered and spread the Greek Empire. And then, of course, Daniel was told in prophecy and shared in the book of Daniel that you can still find today, that kingdom would be divided into 4 different kingdoms, and that one of those kingdoms would rise up and conquer the rest. And that's exactly what happened after Alexander the Great died. The Greek Empire was divided between 4 generals, and one of them, of course, rose up and conquered the rest, and that established the Roman Empire. And then, that's during the time of the Messiah. He came during that time. But what's really interesting is that Daniel foretold that empire would never be conquered, but that it would be broken up and divided. And that's what you see. Rome wasn't conquered, but it was divided. And really, all the kingdoms of the world were kind of like just the rubble that was left after that empire was divided. Of course, you saw with the West and the East, with the Vatican, and then Constantinople and the Byzantine Empire, and then the Roman Empire. But all of that division was still all led by the Bishop of Rome, who still resides in the Vatican city-state. And I feel like they still maintain basically all the same powers that they had before. They just now have all of their bloodlines and their friends and their banking elite friends, spread throughout every empire around the world, and all of the, I'm going to make war with this person, I'm going to make war with this person. That's just them pitting laymen like ourselves against one another to try to brainwash us to hate one another, to think that we're the true threat to each other, when really it's those that are those elite powers that are from ancient times past that have maintained their elite status in the shadows, that are really pushing things and guiding things, and have been putting tribesmen against each other for these thousands of years, making wars, and really they just profit off of that, right? So when the Messiah said you'll see nation rise against nation, I feel like, we've seen that for so long. All of these wars, of course, that is something that would continue, but definitely in this time, it seems like something that has been heightened, I guess. I guess especially with news and being able to keep up tabs with every single nation. I go to that whatdoesitmean.com, and it's like you have the news from the United States, from Russia, from China, from the European Union, from the UK, Germany, France, Israel, Turkey, Egypt, South Africa, Iran, Venezuela, Brazil, United Nations, Mexico, Cuba, India, Japan, Australia, Pakistan, like all the world's news at our fingertips. and it's
Right.
updated every day, and you just learn so much. So yeah, it is really interesting to see how the world is being pit against one another in this time. But yeah, I guess they're saying that it's the new Cuban Missile Crisis is getting ready to happen.
Right. Right. Again, I believe that all the world's a stage, and I think that at the upper echelons, everything is coordinated, and then a lot of times what we see as conflict is contrived, but everything is, I believe, moved by the powers and the principalities, and everything falls in line with prophecy, and we are seeing a fulfillment of all that. But certainly, even with, um, as far as the workings behind the scenes, um, still things are happening to move the world to an agenda and a fulfillment in the new world order, and the even the third global war, as Albert Pike spoke about and talked about, and how that would be, um, this would all play out. That this seems to be, even prophetically, what a lot of the prophets, Dimitri Duduman, and even what George Washington was said to have seen in third vision. And so things like this have been spoken about for a very long time, and it seems like that we are in those times where things are starting to play out in a greater manner. And when it comes to war, even in Roman times, it was always escalated in the spring, and they're talking about escalations moving through, the end of February and into March. And again, I pray against all these things, but it's just the world is a mess. And um, then there's all these things with the volcanoes and people's being challenged that manner, and tsunamis and everything. You just go line by line,
Mm-hmm.
Matthew chapter 24 and Luke 21 and Mark 13, and exactly what Messiah was talking about. And it's all unfolding accordingly. But with that, I think we should go ahead and get into Revelation and our study of it, because these things are also found and confirmed
Mm-hmm.
therein, and we can talk about it more as we move through the text.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to bring up one more interesting prophecy regarding how the nations and all of the friendships between the different nations, the alliances, would work out. And you read that in Ezekiel 38 and 39, and you read about how the kings of the north, Gog and Magog, how they would align themselves with who you would think today would be like Turkey and Iran.
Hmm.
So you see, Russia making deals with these types of countries and working together. And it's really the pressure between the East and the West, I feel, isn't really new. Like even in Syria, there were times where there were
Right,
actually American soldiers that came in contact with Russian soldiers
right.
during the Syrian conflict. That was a crazy debacle as well. But if we learned anything, I feel like it's that we actually have a lot of connections with Russia and a lot of, I guess, diplomacy with them. The
Hmm.
fact that when that happened, they didn't just go to war against each other. They like talked to their leadership, and then their leadership kind of like you know settled them down, and they didn't actually engage. I don't know. Maybe that's a sign that two wings of the same bird, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So we're ready to move in, and I believe what we stopped at last week was when we saw Abaddon and Apollyon, the angel of the bottomless pit,
Right.
and
Oh, and
the
we were talking
locust
about Joel
army.
chapter 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to read, Joel?
Yeah, sure.
Pull
Yeah, I
it
think
up.
because it fits in.
Yeah, it is. It is really important. So, all right. So I'll read Joel chapter 2. Blow ye the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. That's interesting. It says, blow ye the trumpet, right? And we see that
Hmm.
that's the fifth angel that sounds in Revelation chapter 9.
Yes.
You know, we see the fifth trumpet being blown, and John sees a star falling from heaven to the earth, who was given a key to the bottomless pit. And he opened the bottomless pit, smoke arose out of the pit. And then we go on and we see locusts that are coming upon the earth, and they can harm everything except for those who have the seal of God in their foreheads. And they can't kill them, but they will torment them, and people will seek to die but won't be able to die. And then you get a description of the locust army, and then you see that they have a king over them, who is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name is Abaddon or Apollyon. All right, so let's go back and see. This is the terrible visitation prophecy of Joel chapter 2. Blow the trumpet in Zion and sound an alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of Yahuwah cometh, for it is nigh at hand, a day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness. As the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong, there hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even to the years of many generations. A fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. Yeah, nothing shall escape them. That's interesting to consider, right? That the trumpet is being blown in Zion, which we know is in Israel. And for a long time, Israel was kind of like a desert wasteland, right? But now they're like the pinnacle of all types of agriculture. They are,
Right.
and here you see the prophecy says it's like the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them is a desolate wilderness. Yeah, and nothing shall escape them. The appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. Like the noise of chariots on the top of mountains shall they leap, like the noise of a flame of fire that devoureth the stubble, as a strong people set in battle array. Before their face the people shall be much pained. All faces shall gather blackness. They shall run like mighty men. They shall climb the wall like men of war, and they shall march every one on his ways. And they shall not break their ranks, neither shall one thrust another. They shall walk every one in his path, and when they fall upon the sword, they shall not be wounded. That's interesting. I don't know. It's like there's like a covenant with death or something, right? Like nothing's gonna die at this time. They're gonna fall upon the sword, but they won't be wounded. It says, they shall run to and fro in the city, they shall run upon the wall, they shall climb up upon the houses, they shall enter in at the windows like a thief. The earth shall quake before them, the heavens shall tremble, the sun and moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. So you see right here, this is very Revelation like, right?
Right.
The sun and the moon being darkened. We've already covered that. So, you know, the timing of these things is really interesting. So let's continue on. And Yahuwah shall utter his voice before his army, and for his camp is very great. For he is strong that executeth his word. For the day of Yahuwah is great and very terrible, and who can abide it? Therefore also now saith Yahuwah, turn ye even to me with all your heart, and with fasting, and with weeping, and with mourning, and rend your heart, and not your garments, and turn unto Yahuwah your God, for he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and of great kindness, and repenteth him of the evil. Who knoweth if he will return and repent and leave a blessing behind him, even a meat offering and a drink offering unto Yahuwah your Elohim? Blow the trumpet in Zion, sanctify a fast, call a solemn assembly, gather the people, sanctify the congregation, assemble the elders, gather the children and those that suck the breast. Let the bridegroom go forth of his chamber and the bride out of her closet. Let the priest, the ministers of Yahuwah, weep between the porch and the altar, and let them say, Spare thy people, O Yahuwah, and give not thine heritage to reproach, that the heathen should rule over them. Wherefore should they say among the people, Where is their God? All right, so and then later on we get a promise of deliverance. But all right, so that kind of lines up here. Revelation chapter 9 and the fifth seal, the locust army. You see quite a bit of details. And what's really interesting, what we see in Revelation specifically, this isn't, a lot of people try to say, okay, that, he's talking about tanks or like airplanes or helicopters with guns and missiles and stuff. But John says
Right.
this is a star that falls from heaven to the earth. Okay. And stars, according to Revelation 12 and the book of Enoch, stars are angels. So you see an angel fallen from heaven to the earth. And then even here it says, and to him was given the key to the bottomless pit. So him is the star. Okay, so the star is given the key to the bottomless pit and he opens the bottomless pit. This doesn't sound like, he was given a key to a manufacturing facility and went and manufactured tanks. It sounds more like this is some real like stuff that the world is not ready to see.
Right.
Stuff that you would only consider in a sci-fi movie or something.
Right.
But then the bottomless pit is opened, smoke rises. I mean, can you imagine this type of stuff happening? I feel like the Marvel movies, they are really like desensitizing people to kind of get ready to see things like this. And when people see this, it's just going to kind of like propagate that whole alien agenda.
Right.
What's your take on all of it?
Yeah, fully, absolutely. And I agree with you, and I do believe that this falls in line completely with the ancient aliens agenda. Even earlier, I was watching uh, part of the Eternals movie, which I hadn't seen all of that, but um, it seems to fit exactly what we're talking about right now. And then if you look at, the Ancient Aliens show, which is the number one show in the entire world, and everybody's looking to it for answers on how to understand the ancient past, the first world age, those things which science and what they believe the Bible does not talk about, but in reality it does. It covers the first world age and the destruction thereof. And when you study about the war in heaven, the rebellion of the angels of the Most High, and they're being cast down and cast out, and how they become the arch nemesis of God and humanity. They are the archonic force, the Anunnaki, the fallen ones, the pantheon of pagans, gods, and goddesses that were worshipped in ancient times, the feathered serpent, Viracocha, Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, all these things fit into place when you really study in great detail and come to knowledge upon what is even explained right there in Revelation 12:9, with that old serpent, that ancient dragon, which deceiveth the whole world. It summarizes everything right there in that one passage. Its connections to the serpent in the garden, the beguilement of Eve, the conception of Cain, the patriarch of what is that particular bloodline, the serpent seed, how, the Pharisees connected with the den of vipers and also with the murders of the prophets, the strong delusion, the coming reign of the Antichrist. I believe all these things scientism, what Werner von Braun warned his secretary Carol Rosen about the false alien invasion, and how they um, would that all this would occur in the end times and the last days. It's all very clear to me that the angel of the bottomless pit, that he will be one of these, supposed extraterrestrial fallen angelic beings, the Antichrist, Apollyon, Abaddon, which, and those are ancient names that were used during the Greek and Roman times as well. And they mean, the destroyer, which we talked about in the last show. Even the name of that particular star, Nemesis, Wormwood, um, it is called the destroyer in the Colburn Bible. And yeah, wow, that was quick. All right, we'll be right back for a second portion.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm your host, Zen Garcia.
Ezekiel's wheel.
Here on Earth, we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we've lost. That indeed they believe that these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve, and eventually reach what they seek, and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall, and the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past. Time elapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that gods came in alien class. They react in this way, they're so desperate for me.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second portion. That segment went really fast, and as I was talking about and alluding to, is just that, yeah, and as Justin was also talking about with the Marvel series and all the superheroes, and these people that have special powers, that this is also becoming the reality that we're seeing, a push to normalizing that, people that have these extraordinary powers, and even the elites that the whole RH negative factor and the psychic capabilities that they try to strategically couple and to enhance and to grow and to develop these kind of things within their bloodlines, that the occult and the study of the occult is all about heightening this capabilities, along with demonic possession and influence and interactions with fallen legion, and giving themselves over to and developing relationship, which, when you look at the Goetia and all of the ancient arcana, the books on magic, this was the thing that was written about and spoken about. Even the Necronomicon, which is said to be one of the most evil books in the world, it's a book on spellcasts and how to conjure up the ancient Anunnaki gods, and speaks about the Sumerian gods, because they were the fallen ones. They are the feathered serpent, the seraphim angels that were cast out of heaven. And so they were also, according to the book of Enoch, the ones that brought down the magics, the mysteries of the heaven, and teaching humanity things like even alchemy and the synthesis of metals and metallurgy and how to create weapons of war, that they advanced slaughter amongst men and the decimation of peoples and animals, and so that was part of why judgment was brought upon them so harshly. And so and this is a part of what is missing in a lot of this, even in scripture. Even in Genesis, we get vague allusions to what occurred during that time, but we get great clarity in the book of Enoch, and even in chapter 100 of the Keber Nagast on and concerning the fall of the angels. And so definitely Joel chapter 2, I believe, they're falling on swords, not being able to die, and coming in through the windows, that in some manner it's alluding to some kind of supernatural creature, this having hair like women's, and teeth, long teeth, and fingers like scythes, and there's all kind of allusion to this particular locust army. And so I know a lot of people do and try to identify it as being helicopters or tanks or weapons, military weapons, and vehicles. But I think there's something more supernatural to the understanding and interpretation of these scriptures. Justin.
Yeah, and if you really want to get a little deeper of a look, just read Revelation 9:11. It says they have a king over them, is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon. So you look up that word Abaddon in ancient, or in the Old Testament, and it appears quite a few times throughout the Masoretic text, at least, and it literally means destruction. And we read last week from the Colburn, right, and the Hopi
Right.
prophecies about the destroyer.
Right.
It's literally the same word.
Exactly.
The root word in the Hebrew, I can't say it properly, but it means to destroy. So you see, this is a destroyer or a destruction, and it's really weird that it always appears in conjunction with the word Sheol. So it's like, okay, you have Sheol, which is the bottomless pit, and then you have Abaddon, who apparently, according to at least what we're given here in Revelation, is that Abaddon is the king over
King.
bottomless
Yes.
pit. So interesting to think about and to consider. But I always was just kind of curious. Oh, is there more like text about Abaddon or Apollyon? And if you just look, in the scripture, it doesn't really tell you, like, Abaddon is never named again. But if you know how to look into the Hebrew, you can find that word there, Abaddon. So I'm sure that Lisa and Noble can do some more looks into that and share some more information. But yeah, I just thought that that's interesting. So destruction, or the destroyer, is the king over the bottomless pit, and the bottomless pit, at least when we're comparing it to the Old Testament scriptures, like Job 26, it says the grave, or Sheol, is naked before him, and destruction has no covering. Destruction being Abaddon. And Psalm 88:11 says, "Shall thy loving kindness be declared in the grave, or Sheol, or thy faithfulness in destruction, Abaddon?" Proverbs 15:11 says, "Hell, Sheol, and destruction, Abaddon, are before Yahuwah. How much more the hearts of the children of men?" Proverbs 27:20 says, "Hell, Sheol, and destruction, Abaddon, are never full. So the eyes of man are never satisfied." So, really interesting to just consider. I'm under the impression that this is an actual king, right? Especially
Right.
when we go forward. I'm going to skip a little bit forward to Revelation chapter 11. But it says, in Revelation 11:7, talking about when the two witnesses are killed, it says, "When they finish their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit will make war against them, overcome them, and kill them." So, when we think of the word beast here, I don't think that it's just like one beast, but a beast normally signifies a kingdom, right? So this locust army with the king over them is like the beast that descends out of the bottomless pit, right? And apparently
Yes.
it's going to be able to overcome the two witnesses after they finish their testimony. I think that's really interesting to consider. And also, that's going to be in Zion, or in Jerusalem, which, according to Revelation 11, is called Sodom and Egypt spiritually. Identified clearly because it says this is where our Lord was crucified. And that, of course, is the Savior. So, I don't know, any other texts? I tried to look in the Great Commission 3 just to word search Abaddon or Apollyon, and I didn't really see Anything that you know of?
Yeah, I'm actually looking for. There's a passage from the Targum on Job, and I just found it. Praise God. It's in. I published it in Paradise in my book, and it also has this word in it, and I'll read it. And I'm going to read the King James first, and then it's Job chapter 26, verses 5 through 11, and then I'll read the Targum version. It says, "Dead things are formed from under the waters, and the inhabitants thereof. Hell is naked before him, and destruction hath no covering. He stretcheth out the north over the empty place, and hangeth the earth upon nothing. He bindeth up the waters in his thick clouds, and the cloud is not rent under them. He holdeth back the face of his throne, and spreadeth his cloud upon it. He hath compassed the waters with bounds, until the day and night come to an end. The pillars of heaven tremble, and are astonished at his reproof." I cover in this book how this particular place that Job is speaking about is at the north, and that where it says, "and hangeth the earth upon nothing," it's there at the north that we have not only the abysmal chasm, what is said to be the bottomless pit, which is a hollow earth entrance into the darkness of the earth and into Sheol, but there's also an opening where the portal that leads in the high north, the sides in the north, above the mount of the congregation, that leads to the throne of the Most High God and to the heavenly temple, the paradise, the place and home of the righteous. And that this is, again, as I cover in great detail in my book, Paradise Sides in the North and Mount of the Congregation, that this is also where Jacob's ladder is said to be allocated. But in the Targum, it says this for those very same passages. "Is it possible that the mighty who are decayed will recover when they are below the waters and their camps? Sheol is revealed before him, and the grave and Abaddon have no cover. It is he who stretches the north upon the void. He erects the earth over the waters without anything to support it, who binds up the rain in his clouds, and the cloud is not rent under it. He holds tightly the thick darkness about his throne, so that the angels will not see him. He spreads the clouds of his glory over it like a curtain. He decreed that the firmament should dwell upon the surface of the waters as a boundary between light and darkness. The pillars of the heavens tremble and are shaken by his wrath." And so you see that, there's, in my opinion, more detail as to this and its connections to the north, because again, it is in the north that the throne is established, and that we see, descriptions of this, and then we covered this from Enoch and also Ezekiel, and Moshe and the 70 elders saw this in Exodus chapter 20, that there's Zechariah 6 and others that speak about seeing the Most High seated upon his throne, and that the crystalline structure of the firmament, the sea of glass like unto crystal, spread widely beneath him. But again, this passage is different, and there is the mention there of Abaddon, and I do think that its connections with Sheol and the bottomless pit, and also to the binding of the giants and that are said to be contained therein, that this is also found in other verses and other scriptures. And so I think these are the supernatural armies which are going to be released out of that particular area. And yeah, there's other passages that I will look at. I'll share one really quickly from the book of Enoch that speaks about this same area, and it speaks about the north, and also that this was the outer darkness, that, you know, those stars that did not come in their appointed time, that they were bound there. It's not in this particular passage, but it says, I surveyed the stone which supports the corners of the earth. I also beheld the four winds which bear up the earth, and the firmament of heaven. And I beheld the winds occupying the exalted sky, arising in the midst of heaven and of earth, and constituting the pillars of heaven. I saw the winds which turned the sky, which caused the orb of the sun and of all the stars to set. And over the earth I saw the winds which support the clouds. I saw the path of the angels. And I perceived at the extremity at the extremity of the earth the firmament of heaven above it. And then I passed on towards the south, where, burnt both by day and night, 6 mountains formed of glorious stones, 3 towards the east and 3 towards the south. Those which were towards the east were of a variegated stone, one of which was margarite and another of antimony. Those towards the south were of a red stone. The middle one reached to heaven like the throne of God, a throne composed of alabaster, the top of which was of sapphire. I saw too a blazing fire hanging over all the mountains, and there I saw a place on the other side of an extended territory where waters were collected. And I likewise beheld terrestrial fountains deep in the fiery columns of heaven. And the columns of heaven I beheld fires which descended without number, but neither on high or nor into the deep. Over these fountains also I perceived a place which had neither the firmament of heaven above it, nor solid ground beneath it, neither was there water above it, nor anything on wing, but the spot was desolate. And there I beheld 7 stars like great blazing mountains, and like spirits entreating me. And then the angel said, this place until the consummation of heaven and earth will be the prison of the stars and the host of heaven. The stars which roll over fire are those which transgress the commandment of God before their time arrived, for they came not in their proper season, and therefore was he offended with them and bound them until the secret year. That's from the book of Enoch, chapter 18, verses 1 through 6. And so, you know, it's, in my opinion, describing the same place. And as you said, we see that the stars, the angels that did not come forth in their time, that they are bound there.
Yes. You know, Joy and I we took Eliana to the park a couple days ago, and when we were walking down the park, Joy had a really good revelation. She was like, you know, you and Dad doing your study is kind of like, you know, you are like walking on this like road, you know, like, and I'm like, we're walking on this road, this one path, right? And it's like the path is like our revelation study, and then Dad's like, he like sees something and he just like constantly wanders off the road, and he, you know, he goes and he's like, oh, rabbit hole here, and that, now I can imagine why it took you and Rob, you know, over a year to get through Genesis and Enoch. But it makes it fun, right? Because
Yeah, it does. I think so.
walking down the path with you is a lot of fun. But
You got to look at everything,
right, right. Yeah, definitely. So all right. So we
That's funny.
have had a really nice, fun detour. What do you say we go
Right?
back
Go
to
back to the good.
Revelation?
All right, back to the main path.
All right. Welcome back. Do you need some water?
Yeah, we'll get some actually while you're talking.
All right. So we will continue on. We're going to go to the sixth trumpet now. And Revelation 9:13 says, "And then the sixth angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the four horns of the golden altar, which is before God, saying to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, release the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." So the four angels who had been prepared for the hour and day and month and year were released to kill a third of mankind. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. Thus I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat on them had breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth, blue, and sulfur yellow, and the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and brimstone. By these three plagues, a third of mankind was killed: fire, smoke, and brimstone. By the fire, the smoke, and the brimstone which came out of their mouth. Wow. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails are like serpents having heads, and with them they do harm. So that is interesting. So we've all heard of like the horsemen of the apocalypse, right? The four horsemen. But here we have 200 million horsemen that are going to be released. And wow. So it's interesting. First you see the four angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. So first off, okay, there are angels that are bound in places around the earth. That's something you don't hear about every day. But these are at Euphrates. And then you hear the four angels who had been prepared for, they were released to kill a third of mankind. And then all of a sudden there's 200 million horsemen with them. I don't know, how do you get from four angels to 200 million horsemen?
Yeah, I think the four are showing the those that are the leaders, almost like the four horsemen of Revelation, and then you see that the rest are the human element, I believe, the numbers, because even in like the books of Zachariah Sitchin, he spoke about many times how the fallen angels, they would gather their, and they would be like the gods of certain nations and certain regions, and those particular people, cultures, they would worship certain gods, and how they could gather all these peoples together in a unified force, and that there was wars, even amongst the gods during those times, and that they would lead them into conflict with one another, and that it was always the legion, the fallen angel component that guided and directed and determined where those particular wars would take place. And the human element was always just like the cannon fodder. They were just the pawns that played would play the as far as the battle out between all of the masses and the numbers. And there's always as far as the way that it is in conflict, they control from the top down, and they always divide and conquer. That's the way that it's always been manipulated, even amongst their children, the seed of the serpent that's sitting on the thrones of the world, that they also um, position, and even what we see, in my opinion, playing out there in the Ukraine and in Taiwan, um, that there's conflict, and then that's it's going to play out in this similar manner, that you have the sides that are armed and prepared for the conflict, and the two divisions, whatever is the cause, whether it's communism and capitalism. It's the same thing in Vietnam. It was Russia and America that was at war there in that small country, and utilizing the North and the South Vietnamese um, to play out their conflict. And in similarity, South Korea and North Korea with the DMZ line and all of that, that is still a conflict zone, and it's part of what is forever long been the Cold War. All right, we'll be right back, everybody.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back everybody for a second hour. It is crazy how fast this show is going by, and let me turn it back over to you, Justin, so we don't get off on too many rabbit trails, and maybe we can actually make it through this chapter.
All right, so we're reading about the sixth trumpet that is being sounded in Revelation chapter 9. And we see that 4 angels are released who were bound at the great river Euphrates. Do you believe these are real angels? I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
And then there's an army of 200 million horsemen. And as you said, these angels are potentially just the leaders, and somewhat similar to the 5th seal when the bottomless pit is opened up. We see an army of locusts come out, right? And now in the 6th trumpet, we see an army of horsemen. So we get a description of the horsemen, and it is very interesting that they have breastplates of fire, fiery red, hyacinth, sulfur yellow, heads of horses. The heads of the horses were like lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and brimstone. And it says, by these 3 plagues, a third of mankind was killed. So this is interesting. You know, we have a lot of great conversation going on in the chat. A lot of people sharing their interpretations. And one interpretation was that the smoke and the brimstone is lies. So I'm not sure that this verse is referring specifically to a spiritual type of mankind being killed. I think that this is like they're actually being killed by the fire and the smoke and the brimstone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting that keep going. It says, for their powers in their mouth and in their tails, for their tails are like serpents having heads, and with them they do harm. So I think I've followed the logic that this would be lies. If we go over to Isaiah chapter 9, it says, the elder and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet who teaches lies, he is the tail. So it makes sense, right? That, it says here that the horsemen, their tails are like serpents. Okay, we know serpents are deceivers. They're liars, right? And it says in Isaiah 9:15 that the prophet who teaches lies, he is the tail. The leaders of this people cause them to err, and those who are led by them are destroyed. Therefore, the Lord will have no joy in their young men, nor mercy on their fatherless and widows. For everyone is a hypocrite and an evildoer, and every mouth speaks folly. For all this is anger, and is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For wickedness burns as the fire; it shall devour the briars and the thorns, and kindle in the thickets of the forest. They shall mount up like rising smoke. So interesting interpretation there, that this could just be an army of false prophets that are sent out, and that the lies lead them to spiritual death. But I'm not sold on that interpretation. We also had, someone that was sharing that this verse has already been fulfilled. They pointed out that this is an army of 200 million horsemen, and they said, what nation has horsemen? No nation has horsemen these days, and that is proof that the millennium's already happened. This has already been fulfilled, and we're living in the short season at the end, when Satan would be released. But my rebuttal would be that no nation has had 200 million horsemen in ancient times. 200 million, that's a humongous amount of people and resources. And if somebody had an army of 200 million, I don't know. But my whole concept of it has the millennium happen, we've discussed this, and after the millennium happens, in the short season when the enemy is released, the Messiah in his kingdom of Zion will literally be here on the earth. And Joy and I, we visited Israel. We walked around, on the Temple Mount, and near the real Temple Mount, not the Roman fortress, but we actually walked all the way over to the Mount of Olives, and we went to all up and down Israel, and the Messiah's kingdom. It is spiritually here, of course, in those who have confessed faith and received the baptism of the Holy Spirit. But in the millennium, it's physically going to be here on the earth.
Right.
So I don't see that. And I don't believe the millennium has happened yet. My interpretation that at the end of the millennium, when the enemy goes forth to lead astray the nations one more time, he's just going to convince everyone that the Messiah, the true creator that is reigning in Zion, is actually, a fake false prophet, false god, and he's going to try to lead everyone to overthrow him. And it's not going to happen, obviously. And then that's when the Great White Throne Judgment will occur. Did you want to speak? What do you think? These 200 million horsemen, right? We get a picture, and they're not anything like a horseman the horses have heads like lions, and they have tails like serpents. It doesn't sound like a physical like creature or person from Earth. What's your interpretation?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of like centaurs, like a supernatural army, a hybrid type of creature, almost like one that is described in the mythology of ancient times. How we had like griffins and even the mention of dragons and things of that nature. But centaurs, had the horse bodies. I don't know, as far as stings in their tails or anything like that, but they had, said to have bodies of men from torso upwards, or some kind of aspect of that. And so, and if they had long hair like women, I don't know, I've never seen one. There is a description of these particular hybrid beings in a passage from Berosus that you can find in the Chaldean history of Polyhistor that is mentioned. And I've shared that passage with many people before. But so again, I think it's some kind of supernatural, and being released, out of the pit, whether these are the ones that come out of the pit with the four that are released from the river Euphrates. Joel chapter 2 gives a description also of them, even if they fall on the sword, they don't die, and how they're able to enter in through the window. So I think there's some kind of supernatural aspect. And then again, the whole connection of Antichrist and with the stars that fall and that are bound in the bottomless pit right now. So, and with regard to the millennial kingdom, next Thursday, I'm doing a show with Noel Hadley, and we'll be talking about this because, he believes that the millennial age also occurred, and I do not. And I'll be bringing up things that I want to speak about, and he will also. But the main thing is that before the millennial age, as we see within Scripture, Antichrist is revealed and the beast kingdom is set up, and then you have the catching away on Yom Teruah, the harpazo, where those that are caught up and that are in the clouds with Christ then will watch the destruction, the wrath of God poured out onto the earth. And it is during that time that the earth and the heavens are destroyed. The seals are open, and everything, the earth is destroyed to such degree that it becomes flat. The crooked places are made straight, the mountains brought low, the seas brought high, and it will be, as it says in Revelation of St. John the theologian, flat like a table, and white version, and snow white in preparation for the coming of the bridegroom. And then Christ comes, takes his judgment seat for what is the harvest of the wheat and the tares. And then after that determination, um, some go to perdition, and those that are numbered amongst the elect and the righteous enter into the rest of New Jerusalem, which then descends out of the heavens. And as you said, it is here upon the earth that Christ and the Godhead rules and reigns openly, so that we learn the true law of Torah and the commandments, and also of the feast days, the festivals. Isaiah chapter 66, it tells us from Sabbath to Sabbath and from Kadesh to Kadesh. And so we are going to learn, fully, and all the nations that, and those that don't want to abide, they will be separated and cast
And
out.
they don't even get rain, right? Isn't that what we're told?
Right. Yes, exactly. And so, yeah, and so again, we're going to be, God willing, walking with, learning, and there won't even be light from the sun, because the Lamb is the light, as we see, the light of the world. And so, yeah, and that fully hasn't happened. And so those are things that, Christ comes again before the establishment of the millennial age. And so, yeah, I definitely don't think. And part of the stars being cast down to the earth, as it says in the sibling oracles, results in the destruction of the earth. And then the seals and all that we went through, with the light diminishing from both the sun and the moon, that it will take place in those times as well. But again, the judgment where everybody is brought before Christ for determination. There's, the wages of sin are weighed, and then the determination for not the second death, because of course we know that this happens after the 1,000 years and of the millennial age, and that there will be a loosening of Satan for a short season, but there will be a complete change. There will no longer be the illusion, the matrix of money and jobs and, school and all that. We will be under a kingdom age where Christ is ruling as king, and as Lord, the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. And we will be learning his ways. And the nations also will be learning his ways. And the prophets will be here. All the saints and the prophets, they will be here with as far as the New Jerusalem as well. Enoch and Elijah and all the patriarchs of Israel, they will be here with us. Everybody will be here during that time. There will be a reunion. We'll be in glorified body and glorified form. And so, and the former things will have passed away. There will no more be aging for those of us that are going to be in glorified body, God willing, that, and I pray that all of us take part in that resurrection and that transformation where, in the twinkling of an eye, but that we will be reestablished in a bright nature. And so that, of course, hasn't happened yet either. So,
yeah, it's interesting to consider this verse and what's going on here in the locust army with the fifth seal, the horsemen with the fifth trumpet with the locust army, and then the sixth trumpet with the horsemen, and the four angels released from Euphrates. But what we didn't really touch on is that in the fifth trumpet, it says that they're given authority to harm everyone except for those who have the seal of God on or in their foreheads, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
what I believe was only the 144,000 that would be left. This is just an interpretation that I've been trying to fit, trying to read the prophecy like a puzzle and see what pieces fit where. And from what we read in Revelation 6 and 7, we saw the sealing of the 144,000. Then we saw the great multitude that was before the throne. So at that point, I thought, okay, maybe this is when the resurrection and the harpazo, or the what people call the rapture, occurred, and then the only people that were left were the 144,000 that were sealed from the tribes of Israel. So it's interesting here. We see that there are people that are left here on the earth. They're going through all of these things, and they see people being, harmed around them, right? Tormented for 5 months, and then the angelic, the horseman army here is released, and then a third of the people of the earth are killed, and then we go on, and it says, but the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the works of their hands, that they should not worship demons and idols of gold, silver, brass, stone, and wood, which can neither see nor hear nor walk. And they did not repent of their murders or their sorceries or their sexual immorality or their thefts. So interesting to consider. It says the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent, but I'm assuming this is leaving out those who were sealed. What's your take?
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And then we see also, that Enoch and Elijah are also part of the witness that is here to convict the Antichrist, and they are killed in the streets of Jerusalem as well.
Yeah, we're going to
we'll get to that. Yeah, in Revelation 11. But and then they all, because these are very evil people that are left here. And in my opinion, they are, a lot of them connected to the Illuminati and those that are still involved in the cult, that do, are involved in pedophilia and victim sacrifice, the drinking of blood, cannibalism, abomination in ways that we can't even imagine, and that which you just read as far as their sorceries and their wickedness, and that they continue to indulge, and they won't turn their backs away from this just abominable way of being. Those, and you can see why they are counted as the wicked and not given and are excluded, blotted out of the books of life from the things that we've learned and know about, even with the Pizzagate and all that stuff. But yeah, these are very evil people.
It's going to be a lot.
Doing things.
There's going to be a ton of people.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because
and
there are 200 million horsemen. So for them to just kill one person per horseman, right? And that's a third of mankind. That means there's 600 million people left on the earth, at least.
There's a lot of wicked people. I mean, I would say probably more that are wicked than that are truly righteous, because we are a minority. And so most of the world has gone the way of Cain. And so, yeah, there's a lot of evil. And there's a lot of things that are being done by people that, they don't, we don't know about. And that you can't just look at a person and know that, these are the kind of things that they're doing. I mean, even, with serial killers, there are so many now serial killers, and people that just take lives, and all these kids, between 14 and 17 years old that are getting locked up, just killing people for, I mean, just over a pizza. Killing delivery men, calling people to deliver a pizza, and they'll kill them. It's insane. The kind of There's no sanctity of life. There's no uh, threat or concern of judgment. There's People are just callous and cold, and there's such evil in the world, and we can't understand it. Like one of the girls that works for me, she likes to watch um, some of these girls that talk about true crime stories, and they talk about just serial killers and murderers and all this. And I don't normally watch that kind of stuff, but just when she's doing my stretches or whatever, when she wants to watch, she can watch whatever she wants. But it's just insane the amount of crime and just how cold and callous people are, and people setting up dungeons. Like, just really quickly, I heard the story of this guy that when he was 16 years old, he decided he wanted to abduct girls and have them as sex slaves. And then he met a girl when he was 17 and married her, and she said she would help him with doing this. It's like, how is this normal? And so he abducted this girl with his wife's help, who had a daughter at the time. And that was the only reason this hitchhiker got in the car with them, is because he had a wife and a daughter. But then he kept her as a sex slave for like 13 years before he was finally found out, and she was able to get free. But there's things like this going on. There one other story about a man who was a father to a 14-year-old girl, and this was in Romania, and he built a dungeon under his house, and then kept his own daughter as a sex slave down there, and had 6 children by her.
Yeah, I don't want to go
And
too far off on this rabbit hole, to be honest. It's really unfortunate.
well, I'm just saying that
I
there
understand
is
that we were
crazy
told
evil
that
in
the
this world.
love of many would wax cold, and yeah, I get it. That's evil and disgusting, and really,
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
really
is.
depressing to
Well,
consider.
it's just the reality of it. It is.
Sad that
It's
so many
god
people are
awful.
going through. People are really enduring and experiencing slavery,
That kind of stuff. Yeah.
oppression like that. Extremely sad and unfortunate. But
Yeah, it is.
want to touch on the chat. We had some questions. From Melissa said, could horses represent cars? I feel like chariots seem to represent cars in Isaiah. Well, here the horses had heads like lions. I'm not really sure. I've never seen a car that has a head like a lion. Joseph Bricky said, could the mud flood phenomena be attributed to Revelation 12:15 through 16? I believe you're asking about the flood that the serpent sends out of his mouth. And it's my interpretation that the flood represents people, as waters represent people. And I believe it's in Isaiah. There are a strange people that it says that I'm gonna have to look it up during the break, but it says that there are like a strange children that come up like the waters of a river, and they're like invading Israel. So I believe that passage is not referring to an actual like water flood, but actually like armies that are coming up, and that's confirmed if we read in Isaiah. I'll look up that verse when we go into break. But the next chapter of Revelation, chapter 10, only has 11 verses, and I think we'll be able to read through it pretty quickly, and hopefully we'll be able to maybe even get through it by the end of the show, but I think there's just a couple more minutes before the break.
Yeah, just like one. So yeah, we will. Well, that's great. We made it all the way through chapter 9, and yeah. So perhaps if we keep averaging one chapter, we can make it in 2 months or something like that.
Yeah.
2 or 3
Oh yeah, I
months and
found
make it through this.
one verse from Psalm 144, 11. It says, "Rid me and deliver me from the hand of strange children whose mouth speak vanity and right hand." All right, so the strange children are referred to as the flood, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, we'll be right back, and it'll clarify.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com. Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
To become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for our final segment. I'm going to turn it back over to you, son, and we'll make it through chapter 10.
All right, and before we get into chapter 10, I was just going to complete our answer on Joseph's question, could the mud flood phenomenon be attributed to Revelation 12:15 through 16? And I liken the flood that came out of the serpent's mouth to an army, and so I did quote from Psalm 144:7. It says, "Send thine hand from above, rid me and deliver me out of great waters from the hand of strange children." So we see that, and then we compare it with Isaiah 8. It says, Yahuwah spoke to me again, saying, inasmuch as these people refuse the waters of Shiloh that flow softly, the Holy Spirit of Shiloh, but they rejoiced in Rezin and Remaliah's son. These are people who wanted to invade and conquer Jerusalem. It says, now therefore, behold, Yahuwah brings up over them the waters of the river, strong and mighty. The waters of a river, strong and mighty. That's a flood, right? And the king of Assyria in all his glory, he will go up over all his channels and go over all his banks. He will pass through Judah. He will overflow and pass over. He will reach up to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings will fill the breadth of your land, O Emmanuel. All right, so clearly the king of Assyria, who I liken to the Antichrist, he's going to pass through Israel. But at this time, when this happens, they'll be destroyed. It says that they're going to be gathered together. It says, be shattered, O you people, and be broken into pieces. Give ear, all you from far countries, gird yourselves, but be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, but be broken in pieces. Take counsel together, but it will come to nothing. Speak the word, but it will not stand, for God is with us. So, we hear that the earth opens its mouth and makes a place in the wilderness for the woman to hide out from the serpent. So that's 3.5 years. But yeah, we'll get there in a couple more chapters. For now, we're going to move into Revelation chapter 10. And this is a really interesting look. So it says, I saw still another mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed with a cloud, and a rainbow was on his head. His face was like the sun, and his feet like pillars of fire. This is really similar to the description that we saw of the Messiah. Of the Messiah. I think it was Revelation 4. But really interesting, and let's keep going. He had a little book open in his hand, and he set his right foot on the sea and his left foot on the land, and cried with a loud voice as when a lion roars. When he cried out, 7 thunders uttered their voices. So this is interesting. When this lion cries out, 7 thunders utter their voices. So you hear 7 thunders are speaking when the lion roars. What are these? What are the thunders? And it says, now when the 7 thunders uttered their voices, I was about to write, but I heard a voice from heaven saying to me, seal up the things which the 7 thunders uttered and do not write them. I guess we don't get to find out, right? But we can actually look, and we can look in the Old Testament, and it's written in the Psalms, voice of the Lord thunders. So it's in Psalm 29, and we're going to read this together, because in this we hear about the voice of Yahuwah, and we'll hear actually exactly 7 qualities of the voice of Yahuwah. This is a Psalm of David. It says, give unto Yahuwah, O ye mighty, give unto Yahuwah glory and strength. Give unto Yahuwah the glory due unto his name. Worship Yahuwah in the beauty of holiness. All right, now count with me. The voice of Yahuwah is upon the waters. The God of glory thundereth. Yahuwah is upon many waters. The voice of Yahuwah is powerful. The voice of Yahuwah is full of majesty. The voice of Yahuwah breaketh the cedars. Yeah, Yahuwah breaketh the cedars of Lebanon. He maketh them also to skip like a calf. Lebanon and Syrian like a young unicorn. The voice of Yahuwah divideth the flames of fire. The voice of Yahuwah shaketh the wilderness. Yahuwah shaketh the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Yahuwah maketh the hinds to calve, and discovereth the forest, and in his temple doth everyone speak of his glory. Yahuwah sitteth upon the flood, Yahuwah sitteth king forever. Yahuwah will give strength unto his people, Yahuwah will bless his people with peace. All right, so we see that the voice of Yahuwah sounds like thunder. All right, when he thundereth, we hear the voice of Yahuwah, and we see 7 qualities here, seven qualities or 7 things that happen when the voice of Yahuwah is mentioned. So I'm not saying 100% that John is referring to this passage, but it's really interesting when you consider the culmination of these 7 voices speaking, or 7 qualities of the voice of Yahuwah speaking. The end is that Yahuwah sits as king forever. So he's conquering, and that is the end of it. So it's a prophecy, really, that all of this is happening. First off, we see the voice of Yahuwah is upon the waters, so upon all the people, and you see that it's powerful. He's made full of majesty, so he's going to be recognized, and he's going to come. He's going to break the cedars of Lebanon. All right, he's going to make earthquakes happen. And if you've ever been to Israel, you can see Lebanon from Israel. It's directly north of Israel, and you can see it from some of the mountains, even in Galilee, where Joy and I stayed on the Galilean mountains. You can actually see Lebanon from some of the tops of these mountains, and it says those mountains are going to be broken, and it seems like it's going to be an earthquake. Then you're going to see the voice of Yahuwah divides the flames of fire. Not exactly sure what that could be. I guess there could be different interpretations. But then you're going to see the shaking of the wilderness of Kadesh, another earthquake type event. And then he's going to make the hinds to calf, discover the forest, and then you see his temple. His temple is established. So, we're not told at all what the 7 voices utter, right? So really interesting why he would mention it at all. He just heard a lion roar and then 7 thunders sound, and then it was sealed up, and he was told not to write them. Maybe because it was already mentioned. I would love to actually read this in the Targum as well. Maybe that has a little bit more information. Other than that, it just kind of seems like a random psalm for David to write, but maybe it's encrypted somehow with some very interesting precepts that we could find more information about elsewhere. Did you want to talk about the 7 thunders?
No, we'll continue.
All right. So then the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised up his hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and the things that are in it, the earth and the things that are in it, and the sea and the things that are in it, that there should be delay no longer. But in the days of the sounding of the 7th angel, when he is about to sound, the mystery of God will be finished, as he declared to his servants, the prophets. All right, so we see this guy's got a book, and he's saying, "All right, this is it, guys. It's almost done. This is almost it. It's not going to delay any longer. Get ready." And if you get anything from the 7 thunders, from what we read in Psalm 29, it said that the temple of the Most High is about to be established. And we see that when we see the 7th seal unlocked, when we see the 7th trumpet blown, you see the praising of the angels that surround the throne and the great multitude, that the kingdom of this earth are become the kingdoms of our God. And he is going to invade this earth, overthrow the temporary ruler of this realm, and establish his kingdom here. All right, so the last...
Yay!
Yeah, hallelujah. Can't wait till that time. But before that, a lot of things are going to happen. So
yes.
Here we see at the end of Revelation 10 something really weird. It says, Revelation 10:8, then the voice which I heard from heaven spoke to me again and said, go take the little book which is open in the hand of the angel who stands on the sea and on the earth. So I went to the angel and said to him, give me the little book. And he said to me, take it and eat it, and it will make your stomach bitter, but it will be as sweet as honey in your mouth. Seems really weird. Like, what is this book written on? You know what I mean? Is it honeycomb? Why is it going to taste sweet and then be bitter in my mouth? And why do you eat a book? I don't know. Then I took the little book out of the angel's hands and ate it, and it was sweet as honey in my mouth. But when I had eaten it, my stomach became bitter. And he said to me, you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. So that is the end of Revelation chapter 10. But we see here this book that's being eaten, right? And it seems really weird, but this isn't the first time that a prophet was told to eat a book that he saw in a vision. So we're going to go back to Ezekiel chapter 2. And at the end, it says, Ezekiel 2:9, and when I looked, behold, a hand was sent unto me, and lo, a roll of the book was therein. And he spread it before me, and it was written within and without, and there was written therein lamentations and mourning and woe. And then we go to Ezekiel chapter 3, and it says, moreover, he said unto me, son of man, eat that thou findest, eat this roll, and go speak unto the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he caused me to eat that roll. This is the same exact thing that you see in Revelation. It says, eat that roll, and then go speak to the house of Israel, right? And in Revelation 10, it says, eat that roll, and then it says, and you must prophesy again about many peoples, nations, tongues, and kings. A lot of people say, like, this is proof that John is going to be one of the two witnesses, or that, like, John lived forever and John actually never died, and he's going to, like, I don't know, just show up on the scene again one day. But for me, I just liken it to exactly what we see here in Ezekiel when he was told to eat that roll. And he said to me, son of man, cause thy belly to eat and fill thy bowels with this roll that I give thee. Then did I eat it, and it was in my mouth as honey for sweetness. Interesting, right? Same thing. But we know that inside the roll was written lamentations, mourning, and woe. And he said to me, son of man, go, get thee to the house of Israel, and speak with my words unto them. For thou art not sent to a people of a strange speech and of a hard language, but to the house of Israel. Not to many people of a strange speech and of a hard language, whose words thou canst understand. Surely had I sent thee to them, they would have hearkened unto thee. But the house of Israel will not hearken unto thee, for they will not hearken unto me. For all the house of Israel are impudent and hard-hearted. Behold, I have made thy face strong against their faces, and thy forehead strong against their foreheads. As an adamant harder than flint have I made thy forehead. Fear them not, neither be dismayed at their looks, though they be a rebellious house. Moreover, he said unto me, son of man, all my words that I shall speak unto thee, receive in thine heart, and hear with thine ears, and go get thee to them of the captivity, and to the children of thy people, and speak unto them, and tell them, thus saith the Lord God, whether they will hear, or whether they will forbear. Then the Spirit took me up, and I heard behind me a voice of a great rushing, saying, blessed be the glory of Yahuwah from his place. I heard also the noise of the wings of the living creatures that touched one another, and the noise of the wheels over against them, and the noise of a great rushing. All right, so, you see a very interesting passage that John he saw a book. He was told to eat it. I think it's very similar to Ezekiel when he saw a book and was told to eat it. It was sweet both times. And then they were told to prophesy again. So what's your take?
I think that as far as the book, and I'm not sure, but I remember that in the story of Joseph Aseneth, she was given something like a honeycomb to eat. But of course, it's not with prophecy. But as far as the two witnesses, without a doubt, in the research that I've done, I know without a doubt that it's going to be Enoch and Elijah. Not only does the Gospel of Nicodemus declare such, but that the Revelation, the 14th vision of Daniel, the Revelation of St. John the Theologian. There's so many books, the Apocalypse of Elijah, that name them specifically, and that they have part in, as far as the Revelation 11, even though they're not mentioned here in this particular book of Revelation, but they are mentioned in numerous other manuscripts. I know a lot of people believe that it's Moses and Elijah, but again, even in the Gospel of Nicodemus, when Adam and his generation go there with Christ and they're about to enter into New Jerusalem, and the thief on the cross meets them when they enter therein, they tell them the story of how they have been preserved from death, and that it is specifically because they are to convict the Antichrist in the last times at the end of days, and that he will kill them, then that they will die and succumb to a horrific death, being murdered in the streets of Jerusalem, and that their bodies will be left therein for 3.5 days. And I think that's, again, to represent the 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation, which is, I believe, the time that the Antichrist is fully upon the scene, and without a doubt, the church should recognize who he is, that he is the false Messiah. He's going to persecute the saints. There will be, war against Christians and patriots, and those that are the sheep and the elect and the people of Christ, the true disciples. And so I think that, all of that, well, we'll get into all of that in the next chapter, but in the Great Contest 1, the War in Heaven, chapter 11, I think it is. No, I think it's chapter 13. It's about the two witnesses. And if you want to find all of the passages which I share to confirm that, and I'll bring them up for the next show when we go into Revelation 11. But I think that if you read and study all these, because many confirming witnesses, more than just 2 or 3, and so I do believe that to be the truth, that Enoch and Elijah will be the 2 witnesses of Revelation 11.
Yeah, so what's your thoughts on why are the prophets given a book, and what does it mean for them to eat it?
I think that a book represents a sum total of knowledge and of truth, and that perhaps it's a way for them to digest and almost receive a download of information, and that I'm, for whatever reason, consuming it, digesting it, that it maybe in some manner helps them to receive the messages that are contained therein. I mean, I don't know the ways of the Most High, but in Second Esdras, when the prophets are, the scribes are told to, that Esdras is told to gather 5 of his quick writing scribes to join him in writing these revelations. They are given this fire-colored, honey-colored liquor to drink, and that it also gives them, in some manner, the ability to write down and interpret all of these prophecies and all of these books. And so, I don't know if that has something to do with it, but I think that, again, the consumption of it, and that it is a book, that it represents wisdom and knowledge, and could be a way that the Most High has in some manner established where a book like food could um, bring on the understanding of knowledge in fast pace and quick manner. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's necessary, because in the ways that I've had vision and understanding and supernatural aspect, it's been like a download of information. It's like instant knowing, and then you receive insight that aligns with supernatural remembrance. And for people, a lot of people out there that have had similar circumstances, you understand what I'm talking about. Um, but maybe for the reason of this book and the conveyance of um, John receiving the prophecy in this manner, that it played out this way. I don't know, but um, that's what I think about it. What about you? What do you think?
It's really interesting. Joe Dirt in the chat said, "Knowledge is sweet, but knowing is bitter."
Oh yeah,
That's a
true
good way
that
to put
as
it.
well. Yeah, true that, because it is burdensome, to have knowledge and insight about, especially the destruction that is coming in the time of the end and the wickedness of those times. It can weigh heavy on a soul.
Yeah, absolutely. So we did cover Revelation chapter 9. We finished chapter 9 today, and then we also covered chapter 10. So I'm going to need to change the title to Revelation chapters 9 and 10. And then next week, we will be getting into chapter 11 and talking more about the two witnesses. And so, yeah, I guess Revelation 10 just seemed like another one of those little intermissions where John has another little vision that happens in between the blowing of the trumpets. Really interesting. He sees so much. I mean, this, for him to have seen all of this and then to be able to remember it and to write it all down, that is a tall task. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, but definitely the Most High wanted it preserved in manner that we would be able to study and read it, and all the generations of the world, since this time till now, have been blessed by these words and by the ability to study and to look into it. But I definitely think that we are really blessed because, in my opinion, we are the fig tree generation, and we are those that all of this was written for, specifically, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say everyone had a chance to read it. Definitely
Well,
for
yeah,
a
yeah,
long time.
yeah.
It was only taught,
Truth
I
was
guess,
hidden. Yeah,
in certain churches and
right,
hidden
right,
and monopolized.
right.
And probably very similar to how the Torah and the prophets are taught in synagogues today.
Yeah,
Only the rabbis are the ones that are able to read and make interpretations, and everyone else is just supposed to accept whatever they say, right? So
right,
similar
right.
thing, but yeah, as you said, we're big tree generation, like last generation. We're so blessed to be able to really have our hands on this book and on all of the manuscripts that have grown up around it and all of the ancient
Mm-hmm.
prophecies that speak on these same precepts that we see. I love being able to read Revelation and then to go back into the Old Testament and see exact examples or the precepts expounded upon. Like we had that question from Revelation chapter 12, right? I remember in 2017, everyone thought, okay, is this the rapture or something? Or, Revelation chapter
Right.
12 is happening. And my question was, okay, if Revelation 12 is happening, what is going to happen? And nobody was really touching on that. So it sent me on such a rabbit trail that I was able to, pull up those verses like Revelation 144. Really awesome chapter to be able to study, especially if you're thinking about the 144,000, right? It's so ironic that it happened to be named Psalm 144, Psalm chapter 144. But yeah, I definitely think that. And then Isaiah 8, talking about the flood that comes out of the serpent's mouth. So much description is contained in the Old Testament. So much. And here you see a lot of things happen. So many things are happening in Revelation. But if you really want to break it down and to get into the nitty gritty, the Old Testament prophets, they really give extreme details, like chapters on just verses of Revelation.
Yeah, I know it also drove you to want to be in Israel during that occurrence as well. So. But
Yeah, interesting
we
time.
appreciate, yeah, love all of you. Be blessed, and thanks for joining us. Have a good night.
All right, shalom. Good night. Much love to you all.
Good night.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.